Welcome. This is the very first episode of Yin and Yang. I'm Jacob Christner with TJ Sanson, and let me bring up a little bit what Yin and Yang is. We're going to be we are filmmakers, actors sometimes, just different things, kind of Renaissance people, and we like talking about different stuff. It would be basically, it could be films most of the time, art most of the time, but sometimes politics. Sometimes, like what we're going to introduce, we're going to do the introduction. We're going to be talking about the Queen in just a second. But there'll be all kinds of different stuff. But it will never be about sports because that is my normal life anyway. So
good. All right.
that's my life anyway. But anyway, this is TJ Sanson. And TJ, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your films and how you got into this business and what you're doing now.
All right. Well, I'm TJ. Thanks for joining us tonight. And I have quite a history of theater. It goes back to the early 2000s, and I started doing community theater out of really boredom, if you want the truth. I'm an artist by trade and graphic designer, and when I did a little bit of acting in high school, like a lot of people do, and I didn't pursue it as a living, so I went more the visual art route. So I kind of found myself in between jobs, and I was flipping through on one of our newspapers that used to have auditions, and thought, what the hell? What do I got to lose? And it was something I liked. It was had to do with Morgan Le Fay, and it was the King Arthur legend. I love that story, and I thought, what have I got to lose? And bada bing, bada boom, I auditioned and got a call back. I wasn't even expecting that, and it was fun. And although I didn't get cast in that, I was invited to come back, and from then on, it was just like, one right after the other. And, I kind of got hooked, as they say. The bug bit me and hit hard. So as far as film goes, after a few years of doing theater, long about 2005, 6, Georgia offered tax incentives to filmmakers who would bring their work here, the Hollywood and Los Angeles filmmakers. So it really created a little bit of a boom in our film market, which prior to that had really been just kind of like, commercials and corporate video and what they call industrials back then, the occasional little film with it kind of breeze in here. But once that tax incentive came in, bam, it just opened the doors for it. So, I kind of jumped on that wave a little bit. And then I discovered that, how, just long story short, I got involved with some people who were creating their own independent films and started creating my own content. And I had a debut film in 2012 called Annalisa Love Story, wrote, directed, produced by me and acted. And it is now its 10th anniversary, hard to believe. And I'm working on a sequel to that movie. I'm working on a feature. And so things are, COVID kind of went, blipped us out for a couple of years there, but it's starting to kick in again. And I feel very good about it. It's coming along. I'm working on a couple of features right now, shorts. And my buddy Jacob here is my co-producer. And all of these, Sawdust and Tinsel and Modern Warriors Entertainment, is a merged production company, and look for a lot of stuff from us very, very soon.
Absolutely. Including a nice little film noir, which we're working on also.
Yes, a short film. A very film noirish. It's called The Crystal Locket, and it's very based on the sort of Mike Hammer, Sam Spade kind of storytelling. And there may be, more of these like that to come.
Absolutely. Well, one of the biggest things about it is that's one of the deals that I liked with is you've got a different kind of renaissance to you. It's like you're doing a sort of horror suspense film right now, then you do a film noir. You can be able to see you're a writer also, and you've got, and then unlike a lot of people, you've actually got some kind of idea of how to write a story.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So it's built. So it's a very nice deal. So what we're going to be doing with Yin and Yang. Yin and Yang is obviously the different parts of the little wheel like you see in that little logo. That's what yin and yang is going to be here. We have different thought processes in a lot of things, same in a lot of ways, but different thought processes, different philosophies. So we are here to be able to show that we can have a conversation, get along. We have a little, if we need a debate, we can have a debate, listen to each other. That's what yin and yang really is. But a lot of it is basically a couple of Renaissance people, Renaissance man, Renaissance woman. And that's what this is about.
Absolutely. And while we do agree on a number of things, we also are radically different, in some, areas of our, philosophies and outlook and approach to things. And I think, a good conversation about all aspects of, pop culture, entertainment, some politics, and, sometimes just life in general, is a good thing. So.
Yep. Well, one of the things that now let's get started on the show. We have an hour or whatever on this. So let's get started on this. Well, the very first one, and this was not an initial topic, but we got ourselves a big story today. So we're going to bring it up. Queen Elizabeth, 96 years old. And what I saw today, you saw people going, we're going to pray for Queen Elizabeth. We're going to, you see that on Twitter, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. The thing about it is the fact that you kind of get an idea it's done when especially if they're 96 years old and they're rushing to her side. You know what I'm saying? They just said Prince Harry tried to rush to her and he missed her by a few minutes actually, which considering I cannot stand Meghan Markle, it's like, I feel for him though. Still, it's his grandma.
Sure.
You know what I mean? You can't, it's his grandma in the end. You can't get on him even though he made the wrong choice of woman. I mean, it's just my thing. It's like, but either way, it's like, but still his grandma, and you feel for him and William.
Absolutely. I mean, Charles is really all left of their immediate family. Their mother's gone, has been for some years now, and now the Queen. And, I don't keep up with too much of what happens in their world. I know that, and in fact, from what I read, Meghan wasn't even present. She wasn't even there at the palace, or the hospital, wherever she was. She didn't attend.
Nope.
So that was, it was just a family matter, obviously. So, I mean, but, the Queen, that's a history there. It sure is. And,
a World War II vet. World War II vet.
Absolutely. Bon voyage, good lady. I mean, you lived a good, long life. And, not many of us can say that.
Well, something
pretty active up until almost to the very end. So that's great.
Well, think about this, for instance. You think about this with when you think of a queen, you think of the joke they did this with her. You know what I'm saying? Like that. And the little wave and everything. And you just sees the queen, so she's spoiled. They're living the life and stuff. She drove trucks for World War II, and she did things under fire. I mean, this was a badass woman.
And well, she served. Yes. Absolutely. And I think part of the duties of royal, again, I'm only knowing from what I've seen, more recently with William and Harry, their duties are to serve, at some point, in their lives, either, is in the military in some way or, some kind of service, and I mean, she certainly did do that. And when you say, spoiled and everything, consider the sheltered life those royals until recently. Diana, bless her, rest her soul. She's the one that brought the royal family into modern times. I mean, she took William and Harry everywhere, to amusement parks, to other parts of the world, to America, and they went to New York and and all that stuff. And she was out there and very active and took part in their upbringing. And I think William and Kate are doing that now with their 3 kids, and certainly Harry and Meghan Markle, no doubt will, because they're raising those 2 completely out of the limelight. I only see just a couple of pictures of their kids.
I just wonder if it's Meghan and Harry.
They're not in the public eye at all. So.
Well, I'm just wondering if it's Meghan and Harry goes, yes, ma'am, in a very fetal position. But the biggest,
maybe he likes it. You don't know.
That could be true also. Who knows? But the biggest thing about it is, though, I have the respect for. See, I can't say I'm going to hate Meghan Markle for breaking any royal rules because Diana did. That isn't a reason. It's like, at least, but Diana was breaking customs and traditions, but she did respect the royals. Meghan does not respect them. That's the biggest difference.
Meghan is American, and Diana was brought up in Scotland. She was brought up in a certain status. I mean, she had a position in Scotland. You know, she was Lady Diana Spencer. Okay, Meghan Markle is an American actress.
Yes.
All right. I mean, there's a whole world of difference in how you come up. So, I mean, I don't fault her for being who she is and what she is. I mean,
oh, absolutely.
Don't ask me to explain their marriage. I mean, if they're in love, then they love each other, and then they do. So,
well, but that's the thing, though. Like Diana, there was this part where they were at a park with some kids during it was some kind of deal that they had, some something that the royals put together for kids or whatever. Diana wasn't supposed to get with them. And she played with them and ran a sack race or ran a race and stuff like that. Completely touched them, did everything that royals are not supposed to do. And I respect that. Because personally, to me, sometimes you need to bust the rules a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, and she was a very friendly, outgoing person. And do understand this, that when she and Charles were wed, they weren't wed because they knew each other and met and dated and fell in love. It was an arranged marriage. Those were the last in that generation to have that sort of thing, the arranged marriage. William and Kate met. They knew each other. They hung out. They fell in love. Harry with Meghan, same thing. And we're talking about when you choose to be with your mate, then there's a lot more, you know. Charles and Diana, I mean, the story about them is just, you know, all over the place. It's in The Crown. It's, you know, the affairs that he was having. And then, you know, of course, what happened to her in the end, which was horrible, tragic. So, you know, there's a world of difference in how she approached life and things and went out there. I mean, she was hanging out with Sarah Ferguson. I mean, they were going down to Piccadilly Circus and getting loaded, you know. I mean, that was just like, wow, she's a royal, you know, but by marriage.
Well, Kate is the closest royal that keeps up the traditions. She really doesn't do anything specific. You know what I mean? She doesn't do anything controversial.
No, I mean, but maybe she just doesn't have the desire to or need. I mean, it's not part of her personality. I mean, she's married to, and she's got 3 kids she's got to keep up with, and you know, and all the other duties that go along with it. So, anyway, she's a working mom, and you know, William too works and has to get out and do their thing. So anyway,
well, one thing you can ask me before, I need to ask you this, you'll know this better than I do, even though you didn't keep up with the royals. How was it Queen Elizabeth but Prince Philip? I was trying to think why it wasn't king.
He wasn't king because he was prince by marriage, I believe. Just the same, like Lady Diana became Princess Diana. She would not be queen. Okay.
Right.
Charles will be king because he's direct in line.
Sure. So
okay. William will succeed Charles because he's the firstborn in that lineage.
So that will be will that be Queen Kate or Princess Kate when he gets king? Princess
Kate.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it. That's it.
Now, I don't swear to me on that. You can look that up, certainly.
Yeah.
But again, I do believe that's how the titles go. It has to be a direct line, and whoever's married maintains the
final thing,
secondary title or whatever it is.
Well, the final thing I have to say about this, before we go on to the next topic, is there's a lot of people that were kind of crying, having a little mourning, and I was going to say this: she's 96 years old. In my opinion, there is no mourning for someone 96.
I don't.
At 96, you celebrate their life.
Yes, but I do not believe that the ones who mourned were mourning her demise. I believe they were mourning the end of an era.
That is a truth also?
That's marks. I mean, from 1952 to now, that's a long ass time. Okay. There are people born that year are now 70. So
I know exactly.
And their kids and grandkids, and especially in Britain, that's all they've ever known. And the tributes to her are going to be pouring in from all kinds of people, from Mick Jagger to Paul McCartney to, you know, anybody who's anybody, you know, from there, because that's all they've known their whole lives. So that's the end of that for them. This is something new. Charles is now king.
Yeah, I said that earlier on the thing. I said a lot of people they're crying about it. I said a lot of their mourning was based off the fact that all they've known, and this is you and me too, all we've ever known in our lives is her and around her. We see him on the news. We see everything. Now she's gone, and now it's King Charles. And for about 10, 15 minutes till he dies because he looks terrible. But I'm looking. It's really going to be William eventually because he's the youngest right now. So we're going to see him for years.
Yeah. Of course. In any case,
Yeah, and this was and we give a salute to Queen Elizabeth. She had one hell of a life.
She sure did.
And that's all we can do.
Absolutely.
And our next topic we'll talk about. Remember, you showed me this the other day. The AI with art. What was it? Did someone won an art competition with AI?
They did, and the artist, which I think I'm ambivalent about this. Okay, it won first prize for something. Now you have to delve into the article, which I read. The artist created this by. There's a software mid something. I have to go back and look it up. I could do that, or anyone could do that. I mean, you could just look that up.
Yeah.
But he created it by issuing a series of commands into this AI program to get these aspects, these images. So in other words, he had to verbally describe what he wanted the AI to do. So instead of sitting there like with a pencil and pen and sketching out what you want and going, nah, I don't want to do that. Nah, I don't want to. He had to describe it to it. So there's a certain artistry to that. It's just very different than what one would expect because they are everything in a computer program, it has to be commands. You have to tell it to do something. And the artist, the operator, of this told the AI program to a series of descriptions, languages, commands, what have you. I'm not aware of how it works. I've never used it in order to get that image. And however often, he said he spent like 80 hours or something doing it. So that's about as much time as someone would spend on a painting.
Or some of remember, you do your art too. You basically do what would you say you do? You wouldn't say tracing, not tracing, but
absolutely what would you say,
sketching.
It is not sketching. It is what's known as rendering. Okay. Rendering means either with a paintbrush or a pencil or charcoal, an object, person, still life, something, landscape in a very realistic fashion. That is known as rendering. It is not sketching. Sketching is quick. It is an outline. It is a note taking. What I do is almost sculpting with pencil or charcoal. It's like a sculptor does and smooths out, marble or clay and gets it real lifelike. That is what I do with pencil. So yeah. And it takes immense amount of time and patience and.
Well, take it from me. I take it from me. Someone who could not trace a stick figure, if you gave them a blueprint to help. I wasn't going to know, so that's why I went to the expert for that one.
Well, that's what it is.
Yeah, and so see, the biggest thing that I'd seen from one of his interviews that he was saying, physical art is done. I mean, he very cocky, very arrogant. Physical art is done. It's no longer. We can win like this now. And see, this is where he's wrong. This is where he's wrong in my mind, because even if it gets more and more, there's just going to make more money for the real art through nostalgia in my mind. And then there's going to be people that still want to see. We got to remember, you got to remember by itself, you still got 330 million around the world. The specific people like art and people like old school. Why do you think they have a Me TV? Why do you think they have a Me TV? And all those old television shows, all the everything, even if there's not that many, even if it's like 30, 40,000, it's still 30, 40,000 old people watching. There's still an audience for everything.
There is, and fine art, will never die. Real art will never die. And when I say real art created by a human being with their hands, with raw materials. And by raw materials, I mean anything you can physically hold in your hand, whether it is a brush, whether it is a pencil, whether it is charcoal, whether it is a stick with mud on it. It doesn't matter. Those are known as raw materials.
Right.
AI, the digital, the pixels, okay, as they say, the tricks of the light, all right, is a fairly new phenomenon. Music is done the same thing with music. I don't care how much keyboards, electronica, you can put on the thing. There's no substitute for a violin or a piano or a drum or a guitar or a trombone or a trombone. It's just to really understand and know how to do music, you've got to have that skill. It's got to be there.
And that is very true.
That's all there is to it.
That's very, very true.
Cooking does not mean you toss frozen food into a microwave. You are simply reheating something that's already been cooked. When you sit there with a recipe and all these ingredients around you and you're following a recipe and tossing this and doing the oil and putting the meat and doing that is cooking.
Right. Absolutely it is. And it's like, and see, what you do is the cooking. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You
went out, baby.
Oh, okay. Hold on one second. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Yep. All right. There I am.
Okay.
No, I was just we were just getting this situation. It's like, this is the first time I really run the thing. So I'm learning this system also, you know what I mean? So what we have is, but no, you're right. They love all that. They love all the idea of, fine art, doing it by hand. And to me, this is all the coasts, like the left and the right, the California, New York's, all that stuff that thinks nobody else exists. That'll say things like that. That it's like that the people, oh, it's over. It's over for everybody. Then that's the same people that'll say, oh, there's no way this guy can win an election. You get my point. There's different people with different minds, different thought processes.
I'm of a mind. I just came from Dragon Con. Okay. Great weekend. Walked myself to death. I was exhausted, but every year, no matter what's going on, I'll go to the art show. That's my number one. I like the dealer's rooms where they have to sell the stuff and the merchandise, but the art show is my favorite. And I come away with a handful of business cards every time I go in there.
Right.
And there are people that draw by hand, paint by hand. Are you there? Hello? Oh, baby, you disappeared. Let me see if I can find you. Oh, there you are.
Now we're done. Okay, let's go ahead. Keep going.
Okay.
I'm blanking out. I've just blanked out a couple times. All right, we're done for that. Now let's go.
I was not through talking about art.
No, you aren't. It's like I pushed the wrong thing. Now I'm done with pushing everything.
Okay, don't push anything anymore.
No.
Dragon Con had a lot of great artists, from everything that did digital art, some of it, animation characters, stuff done with, software and printed out, in limited edition prints. And then there's some originals, oils, watercolors, stuff like etchings, beautiful stuff, all kinds of different things. And it's all valid. It's all valid. No, you're not going to pay $1,400 for an anime illustration, but
right.
You go for a charcoal rendering of this beautiful characters, this pop culture, pop art kind of, known characters, but in a very original presentation. So I don't care. I don't care what anybody says. Just go with what you love and what grabs you, If it grabs you, go for it.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm thinking the biggest thing that I think about it, and that's why you do go to your, that is absolutely why you do go to your Dragon Cons. Do you ever go to Comic-Con?
I've been once, but, just Comic-Con focuses strictly on comics and graphic novels.
Yeah.
Mostly. It may have expanded, but I haven't been in years.
Right. So Well, those are the things that, see, those aren't usually my interest, but that's the one biggest thing that I have to notice, because I ran into one once at Dragon Con, and you meet all kinds of different people. I ran into it because I was at a wedding. I was at my nephew's wedding, and it was right in the middle of Dragon Con. So I get to meet all kinds of different people. I even took some pictures with people, all that sort. I wish I would have known where those were, because I look very, very out of place in a Dragon Con. but those were the deals, and because of that, there were people. You got to remember now, this is such a different world. There were people that were once saying that like Dungeons and Dragons would be out to, it's just a niche. That would be out of style. You remember the movie Titanic?
Yes, but I've never seen it. Believe it or not.
Well, anyway, Titanic. There was this one part where Cal, he's the bad guy thing that for the girl, he's the husband or the wannabe husband. She gets Picasso. She gets a Picasso. You know what he says?
What?
He won't make anything of it. I'm telling you right now. He won't make anything of himself. And look what happens, obviously. And it's like, it won't make anything. And that's what the world constantly thinks. It's like, but the world changes too.
I don't listen to that. I have changing the subject just slightly here and kind of edging into our other topic, which is acting. I've been in a position, like I have gone through every agent in town as far as representation. I mean, I've been through all of them, at least 3 of the big ones, a couple of the smaller ones. And I'm at a point now where I'm just not even going to pursue that route right now. I'm producing my own content. I've got enough money coming in. And of course, money's everything in this business, where I think I'm going to make a bigger mark for myself, you as well, partnering with you and our products.
Yeah.
A far bigger mark, creating our own content, writing stuff that we want to do.
Yes.
Then, being good at it and bringing others in to it, on the crew end and on the acting, on the cast end and all that. And by and large, I mean, the reputation is going to grow. If you're doing it right, and if you're treating people right, and treating people professionally is number one. I mean, I was just talking to an actor known in town. I gave him a couple of sides, which is a pages of script for him to read, and he gave me the biggest compliment I could ever hear from anybody. He said, "This is a damn good script. I really enjoy this." He said, "I feel like I really know this character." He says, and I got a script he said he got a script from a professional production company for, another role. And he said, "I just was not feeling the essence of that character." He says, "But I really feel it in this one." And that's what's going to get you. That's what's going to get you the people that want to come to you is the good material. And you got you got them that way. So, and there's others that feel this way too. I know. And which brings me to the actress that I admire and have admired my whole life more than any other, which is Bette Davis.
Yeah. We're going to bring up Bette Davis, and I'll bring up Gary Cooper in a bit. But Bette Davis, see, the biggest thing is I definitely know that's your personality since I've known you. And I've known you a good while.
And everything that I learn about her is that she was a pioneer in Hollywood. She told them, she flipped them off. The producers, the directors, all of them, the studio heads that thought she didn't have, she's just the actress, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, "Look, I know a damn good script." She argued with a lot of them, which was just unheard of, in the day. I mean, she wasn't going to just go this little, "Okay, I'll do whatever you say." Bullshit, not her style. And same with me. I've walked off sets, and I will, that are just not, I feel that are not cohesive or not strong or not, when the filmmaker or whoever's involved is just not, it's just disorganized. I'm not going to just sit there and waste my time or anyone else's. So,
well, we've all been there. We've all been there in that
yes.
situation, because you'll hear it all to this day. We all see the little casting deal. It says, "It's good. Let's see. We're going to get you a pizza. We're going to get you a pizza. You're going to get IMDb credit. You're going to get this." And it's like, see, when you're 23, that sounds great. Then it keeps going and going and going. I mean,
Yep.
there are people. I mean, we can name a name from the past, Noble Willingham, and from an old actor from the past and everything. There are people that probably have more credits than he does. And yeah, but did they have a more fulfilling career? No, because he would have had the kind of characters in comparison. He got paid for it. He was a professional. But
Yep.
I mean, who cares about having so many IMDb credits if you're not doing anything with it?
Well, and in the long run, number of IMDb credits doesn't make. I've heard other agents say this: the number of IMDb credits don't mean a hill of beans.
Yeah.
Okay? If you've got 100 shitty credits and you got 15 good ones,
Yeah.
it's the 15 good ones that count.
Oh yeah.
Okay?
Oh no, quite.
It's just it doesn't matter. I mean, unless you're getting paid for all those credits, all right. I mean, but again, independent work can be anywhere from 75 to SAG ultra low budget, 125 a day. And well, in my end of things, money is good, but if I come away feeling crappy about the project, it's not worth anything. So
well, the biggest thing was, it's like, this is the biggest thing of the fight of the art versus commerce, because there are people that just they live totally, like you can say producers, they live totally off the money, and they don't give a crap. They don't care if they're just doing the same character over and over. They're seeing the paychecks. Then there's the ones who, like, okay, we can go back all the way to Pernell Roberts, from the Bonanza, and he left in season 7, I believe, 8, and then Lauren Green's telling him, stop right there, just keep going, go with this, and you can buy your own theater once this is all over. And he was correct, because guess what? It lasted 8 more years after that. It lasted 7 more years after that. And then Pernell Roberts didn't get a big role for 16 more years. And it's like, and it's those things, like, a lot of people go through that whole thing is like, I want this art. I want to be Hamlet. I want to be this.
you know what? If it's your livelihood, then you need to think of the paychecks. Okay. Yeah. If it's your livelihood. And many people have circumstances. All right. There are actors who do something that kind of, F up their opportunities in the business. Okay. Or they just simply walk away, or something, they reach a point where it's just not working for them. It's not giving them the fulfillment. You have got to, this is such a demanding craft, and it takes so much out of you that if you're not loving it, walk away. Okay. Or walk away, collect yourself, do something else for a while. And I think somebody else just recently came back into the fold. I'll say briefly, because you even posted about this on Facebook, Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
The guy from The Mummy, hot, muscular, gorgeous guy, the flipped hair back in the 90s, that look. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, he was just gone. And then he just turns up in The Whale, and he's, 100 pounds overweight, and he's middle-aged, and, he's not the gorgeous guy he used to be. And, look what happened. He comes away with an award and standing ovation, and he's entered a new phase of his career if he intends to stick with it.
And I believe he will come to stick with it. And you can never tell. Maybe he'll produce. Maybe he'll. But see, this is what happens with a lot of good-looking guys. A lot of It's remember what I said to you about the one. Remember I said to you about the one actor, Kevin Nash, the wrestler, the actor, and everything. I said it. His buddy said to him, "Don't let everybody be your gimmick, because it's the first thing that go." That's basically what happened with Brendan Fraser.
Yep.
And those are the things. And see, those are the things I talk about. And it's like, remember I brought this up a little while back, Victor French. And this is what we're gonna bring up a lot of. We're gonna bring up a lot of obscure names too, because he was dead in '89. We're gonna bring up obscure names. I brought that up with Victor French. He played the heavy. He played every type for years and years and years. Every type of bad guy, everybody tough guy. Gets one episode of Highway to Heaven, and he has to pretend he's a woman, and he plays it as absolutely gay as human in 1985.
Right.
In 85, and pulls the thing and gets it. And it's like, you just take a look at this guy. This guy, he wears like khaki pants and does everything. He's like a trucker. The trucker trying to dress up. You get me? And yet he pulled it off. He pulled it off, and it's like
Sure.
acting and performing. It is such a different deal, and it is years.
And I bet he welcomed the opportunity to do it. Okay. Yeah. Once he's been heavies for 30 years, he's probably sitting there saying, good God, let me play the nice guy, the sweetheart.
Which he did on Little House. Yeah.
Yes, or the flaming, dandy on the what was it, Highway to Heaven, you said? He probably sat there and went, yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm the kind of girl, okay, I can speak for someone who's been typecast. And I am writing characters for myself now, having to, okay, because I'm not, I don't have an agent. We're not in Hollywood. This is not the market where you can really pick and choose, because there are not that many roles. So creating one I want for myself, not a victim per se, and really a nice girl, but she's the girl who's got a journey. She's not the bitch, And in the film noir thing, same thing, femme fatale.
Yeah.
But she's, she's going to end up sort of being the victim in the end, spoiler alert. But see, I'm writing these characters not like a victim, but someone whose circumstances, creating a tragic character. Okay.
Yes.
A tragic character is what I'm trying to say. Whereas in this other horror movie that I'm writing, the feature, my character ends up the victor. So she goes from sort of victim to victor. But that's just what, Hollywood has the paid writers, and the actors that have the opportunities out there that maybe they wouldn't in a small market like Atlanta, Louisiana, others. We're going to have to, we got to be the creative team. We got to take the bull by the horns and make the characters we want for ourselves.
Yep. And think about this or something. We think about, you could tell the difference between the actors and the quote unquote performer. And the reason I was saying that, like we brought up Stacey Keacher earlier. Stacey Keacher was at the London Art School of Acting. I mean, this is a guy from Savannah, Georgia, so he can do an accent. He can get all this. He played the hard-boiled badass cop. And the difference between the performer and the actor is this hard-boiled badass cop got his butt kicked a lot. He got it back. It's basically James Garner. Got it back. See, the actor wants it as part of the story for the character. Okay, if he's going to get his butt kicked, it's not there against their ego. It's not against their ego to show the being vulnerable. That's what an actor is. They don't mind being vulnerable. They can get their comeback in the end. The good guy, bad guy.
Vulnerable means you are capitulating to the situation. It doesn't mean you have to go, oh, well, I don't know what to do and help me. No, it doesn't mean being a whiny crybaby. Vulnerability means you are subject to, you're allowing your emotions and the situations and the other actor to affect you.
Right.
Okay? Whether they're scaring you, whether they are making you angry, whether you're like, I want to fucking kill you, which means the actor has done something to get that reaction out of someone else. It doesn't mean that you have, you have to behave a certain kind of approach to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The vulnerability comes from when you're allowing the script and the actor and what your actions to affect you. And Alan Alda, he's our man.
And I was going to bring up, we're going to bring Alan Alda to that, but I was going to bring up Gary Cooper, because I call Gary Cooper the real John Wayne. Now, I have a respect for, and I'm going to say this to somebody, I do have a respect for John Wayne in a certain way as far as what he was. He was a one-trick pony, but he made the most of it. You know what I mean? It's like you are going to see too much vulnerability out of, and the Quiet Man doesn't count because he got into the fight at the end. So I'm not even going. I mean, they're trying to do something different. He tried playing Genghis Khan. It wasn't very good. The thing is, but John Wayne was supposed to be the rugged individualist, all that kind of stuff. That's Gary Cooper for real. He was legitimately from Montana, legitimately had ranches, legitimately had all that. And then here's what's funny. He was a Republican, and yet he took the role John Wayne did not. Because John Wayne called it communist. Because, and see, it was basically a role. It was basically a role. It's going to come to me in just a second. But it was basically a role where the hero keeps getting, he's actually scared. He's basically Hawkeye Pierce of a different day. He's scared, but he has to face it down anyway. It's like, where before John Wayne's not afraid. Yeah, it's like, I'm going to go in there and kill all those 800 Indians. Yeah. It's like, that's what the whole thing was. It's like, they make the point that that hero is basically someone who's too tired, too hungry, and too out of it to realize to give a crap. And that's what Gary Cooper was. And I forget the name of the movie for a second. I will come to me. But basically, his character, the sheriff or the marshal, has someone ready to kill him, and everybody backs away. He is alone. He's alone. He'd been helping these people all these years, and they backed away. They didn't help him. No one wanted to be deputized. He had to face it all alone. And he ends up crushing the badge at the end. He crushes the badge at the end. And John Wayne called that communist because the guy was actually afraid. He got through at the end, but he called it communist because of that. And I'm like, the more you listen to his story, the more you realize he's the real John Wayne anyway.
Okay.
But,
well, I mean, Gary Cooper is certainly was certainly a prolific actor, until the end. But I don't know. Well, John Wayne, I got to give Wayne this. There's all kinds of stories about him, and he's a topic for another, episode, I think.
But when they were saying John Wayne
in and of himself, okay. But yeah, Gary Cooper. I mean, he played a Quaker in a movie called Friendly Persuasion. He was the Quaker. He was the down home, not very home. Now you know how Quakers. I mean,
right.
He was the homeowner and the pacifists. Okay,
yep.
Anti-war. What did they call them? Conscientious objectors. Yes. And Anthony Perkins played his son, and he wanted to go to war. He wanted to, it was the Civil War. Okay, he wanted to. He was fighting they were fighting on the north because they were in Pennsylvania, and they were fighting against the south.
High Noon. High Noon was the movie, by the way.
High Noon. Okay.
And yeah, John Wayne turned it down because he thought it was communist, just because there was a fear. There was a fear in the guy, which would be realistic, being human. And in truth, I bet you he turned it down because he couldn't have pulled off the vulnerability.
Probably so. And because I have not seen High Noon, believe it or not, I can't say. I know he was supposed to, in some movie, he got in a fight with Bruce Dern. And Bruce Dern,
yeah, the Cowboys. He won
the fight. He was like, "You're not supposed to beat up John Wayne,"
Well, he won the fight, but got shot from behind. They said, "Here's what he was telling Bruce Dern: you're gonna have millions of people hating you after this." And he said, "Well, millions of people at Berkeley will love me." That's what Bruce Dern said. I just saw Bruce Dern in a movie called Nebraska, which was amazing. Actually, a really good movie in black and white.
He was in The Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
He was in The Hateful Eight. That was
just recent. But High Noon, the thing about High Noon was he was using the excuse, and he could get away with it, especially at the time of the McCarthy. You know what I mean? The McCarthy trials and all that kind of stuff, where he would say, "I didn't want to do this because it's so communist." No, the High Noon, and and it's like I had to remember the thing. I've seen clips of it. The type of vulnerability it took to face down 4 guys and still have to do it with nobody behind you. The type of fear that it was going to take. John Wayne could not have pulled that off. He was not that type of actor.
No. And even if he had been at the point in his career, he wouldn't have done it. And as a younger man, he might have. Okay.
My acting coach used to call it, there are one-step actors. Chuck Norris was another, but he called them, they're good at getting out of their own way. Meaning they can do what they can do. They could be, okay, maybe they can have an aura to them. They can look tough. They can look mean, nasty, whatever. Maybe be the bad guy. Maybe you're the heavy, as they called him for all those years. Maybe it's stuff like that. They're good at that, but they're not trying to do anything extra. And that's
Well,
what it is.
and that's probably because they don't have to.
Yeah.
And if they wanted to, it would just be an experiment, something to do because they want to. And then some people have the attitude of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If he's going to play the one character for 40 years, then knock yourself out. There
Well,
are
he was the
plenty of
Converse.
other actors that can do all kinds of things, and bring up this guy, Alan Alda.
Yep, right there. Now, you and I are both huge fans of this guy.
Oh God, I had the biggest crush on him when I was a teenager, because
What did you have a crush on him for? What was your crush for? I'm just saying, as a teenager thought process.
he was a good-looking, middle-aged man who was sensitive, but he fought for the underdog. Okay.
Yeah.
He didn't back down with his patience. In the operating room, he went the full 9 yards. He wasn't like these people of like, oh well, I've done all I can do. He fought tooth and nail to make sure that patient stayed alive, or he was like sick. In one episode he was sick. He was walking around, but he was the only doctor who was there. And he had to keep going. And I, as a girl, it just that just wins you over.
And you have the contrast of Frank Burns, and I'm telling you, it's the contrast of Frank Burns, and it's like the idea of, you have Hawkeye, who's not pretending to be brave. He just is because he has to be. He admits he's frightened. He admits he's scared. He admits things that he's overwhelmed. He'll admit those things. And then at first, okay, you got Frank Burns, who was basically Dr. Jonathan Smith. You know what I'm saying? Or
they had to have a foil. Okay,
yes.
There had to be a foil. And in the beginning, Frank wasn't that. He was just this prim and proper, kind of snooty, but whiny. He was whiny. And then they played on that, because the stronger that Hawkeye and Trapper would get with the situations, the stories got more and more they were the stars. Burns was the married man having an affair with the hot blonde, and what she saw in him, who knows? But he was having the affair with the hot blonde, and they just made him to be the comic foil. But there was one episode with Frank which I liked, and it was the only time you ever really see him be a human being and not just a comic cardboard cutout.
Basically, when that's when Margaret gets married, isn't it?
When Margaret gets married, she leaves Frank for Bob Scott.
Yep.
And Frank goes on a bender, and he's just la 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 la. And Radar comes in to him, and he says, "Frank, you got a phone call." And he was, first of all, he was like, "Who is it?" And he's like, he picked it up, and it's been so long since I've seen it, but I remember this. He gets on the phone, and it's his mother.
Yes.
Okay. And Hawkeye and the others are in the office eavesdropping. And Radar was just like, sometimes a guy just needs to talk to his mom. And they listened to him, and you really saw, first time ever, an insight into Burns. More about him, about how he felt, how he grew up, how his dad left him or whatever, mistreated him, abandoned him, whatever. And he said it. He said, she just pretended to love me, like Dad used to.
Yeah.
And finally, you saw the human being in there, not just the rat thing. They used to call him the rat-faced, whatever.
Ferret face.
Ferret face. That was it. And you finally saw that. And even as young as I was looking at that, I thought, finally, they gave him some depth. Okay.
Well, and something, it was like the biggest thing about it what I loved about MASH was the fact that they treated a war like a war. Like the first few years, it was still bloody, it was still everything, but they were doing the laughter. They were doing the laughter to completely block out the idea that there's this problem. And they hate it, but they're able to still do practical jokes. And then there are people there are fans that will say, "Oh, I don't like those last years because it's all his Alan Alda's leftist way." And it goes no. It goes beyond that part. It's like, and if you asked him, there's no way. The fact remained that that everybody had been at war for so long, they lost their minds. Everybody did.
Well, and even Alda would tell you, towards the end there, it was just, they were, they were forcing it because he said the show MASH lasted 3 times what the Korean War actually did.
Yeah.
Okay. And there was only so many stories they could tell. Okay. Because it was just getting to where, it was getting to more interpersonal stories rather than stories having to do with the war and the military and what was going on that way. Because in reality, it only lasted so many years.
It's like 3 or 4 years, but MASH did it so well because even with 11 years, MASH did it so 3 or 4 years. MASH did it so well in the fact that you could think that Korea did last 11 years because you could think that war lasted 11 years because they were falling apart. Everybody until the very end of the last show when he fell apart completely. And that's the thing. It's like everybody would in a situation like that eventually.
Well, I love Alda and of course, and he even maintained a friendship with a lot of those people long after the show ended. Wayne Rogers, especially. And
then he becomes West Wing, and then becomes Arnold Vinnick.
Well, and in between that, he wrote and directed and produced movies. He acted in some Woody Allen movies, at least one, and then comedies. I mean, he was just doing murder mystery. He played this crazy psycho psychiatrist in some movie. I can't remember the name of it right now. Annabella Sciorra was the actress. You could find it on, Google it. But, he played a psycho. And he's just done all kinds of stuff. And nobody can see him as anything other than Hawkeye for the longest time. But I've known even early in his career, in the early middle 60s, he was playing some pretty strange characters, and that's the age when most guys are the leading man. And he didn't really even become a leading man until he got older.
Well, and the one thing I love about the guy, and I've brought this up to you, we'll just talk about it and everything. The one thing I love about Alan Alda is he's not angry very often, so it makes a difference. I mean, there are ones that'll get angry once or twice a time, like an episode of this and that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He's not. I mean, it might be. They go through all the stress, all the everything, and it might be 8 episodes before he gets angry again. He's more very matter of fact. He's more professional. He's more down to the point.
He gets fired up. He can get fired up.
Yeah, he does, but it doesn't. But it takes a lot. And there are ones that feel like that they're making it a thing where they want to get fired up. He's acting like an actor, like a human being that he doesn't want to have to do it, but he loses it. He loses his patience, and then it's there.
Well, he even said in the article with the New Yorker that he says, I try every technique, just to make sure that I'm in step with my character and getting what my character wants. He says, I get to a point where I feel till I get what that character is entitled to. And he says, I have to think of it in those terms. And that's in the article with the New Yorker that you posted on Facebook. But
yes.
He's going to keep acting. He's going to keep doing stuff. He's not done. He's far from done.
And he's got Parkinson's disease, and he's still going. You know what I mean? And he
does, yes. And that's a challenge for pretty much anyone who gets it. I mean, it has certainly been affected others, to a point to where they have to end up just kind of, stop. But so far, he's doing all right.
He also takes boxing classes. So they do boxing classes for Parkinson's people, for Parkinson's survivors. So that they see, because boxing is 1-2, combinations 1-2 helps your brain continue to think like that. Plus, he plays chess with his wife. Plus, all that kind of stuff with everything. He's using his brain all the time, so it's probably slowing the process down of the disease.
Could be. I don't know enough about it, but I think he's, I think it's good to keep moving, keep doing what you got to do, and don't ever get, stagnant, I guess is the word, you know.
Well, see, Alan Alda to me, like I said, Alan Alda to me it reminds me, growing up, being around all the construction people that I was around, the engineers, all that kind of stuff, you know. I was around all that, you know, the man's man. I had a priest friend that was 13 years old. I met him for the first time, Father Banner, and in his house, you go to his house, you know, meet. When I was like 18, 19, I'd just go see him once or twice a year, you know, at the place just to visit. He had like 7,500 books in his house. He was and he just, of different things. He loved talking. He used to say to me, my dad once said that it's like there are millions of beautiful words in the English language. Why dirty them up with cuss words? And you'd hear these things like this. He wasn't doing it on a religious statement. He was doing it on an intelligence statement.
I agree with that. I think cursing can be cathartic when you've got to, release some. But I love looking at Shakespearean insults because I'll give you an example. Thou globby bottle of cheap, stinking chip oil. Is first of all, the bubbling, the use of language in the Shakespeares and in those, look them up. There's Google Shakespearean insults, and they're wonderful because you can sit there and totally tell somebody they're a complete piece of shit, but in such a poetic way.
Well, and those,
they have no idea what you're saying. Then they fall apart laughing, you know?
And see, no, but I used the Father Banner example of that was the first time I was around, and then he liked planting flowers in his at his flower pot and stuff, and this was the first time where I met somebody who it was more of sensitivity and intelligence. He was the priest at our church, great guy, and it's like he had a little dog named Addie, just like a little dog named Addie, and that was his life and everything, and had all those books in the house. All those books, and he probably had them from 1900 on. Probably had all the collections. And I wish I would have seen through that thing today. I wish you would have gotten knowing more because. And then when he got blind, that was his heartbreaker because he couldn't read anymore.
Wow.
And it was like, and those were the things. But then that brings me back to Alan Alda because that's the first act. Because growing up, I grew up with the Joe Pennies and Stacey Keachers and those type of run through a wall, go beat people up stuff. Alan Alda was the first actor that I caught my eye that he could still be a hero and not have to be that. You can admit that you're a little bit what?
Absolutely. I said, absolutely. No, you don't fight until you have to. Okay. Yeah. You don't do it till you have to. There are times when I just want to kick the door in, but I've learned that even though as feisty and as fired up as I get sometimes, there's better ways to handle it. And the machismo guy, there's written out to be this, like you said, the man's man. There are men's men that are far more, they got more going on up here. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is where the muscle is, not here.
Well, okay? I've learned a lot from getting older. I turned 44 on August 24th. I learned a lot from getting older, and I know what I'm capable of doing. But I'd rather be intelligent. I'd rather use my head. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power.
Oh, no question. And I'd rather, and by the way, we're the 58 minutes about to hit an hour. And I wanted to, and I love that we had this for our first episode. I love this that we had it for the first episode. And we're going to have a lot. I could call this the pilot. Because it's going to get bigger and bigger. We're going to get great. We're going to get great actors. We're going to get great. We might get scientists. Who knows? We might get people on there. And one of the biggest things know this from me. When it comes to women's topics, I stay out. So if you ever have a thing to be able to do something like that, you can bring one on that can take my spot. And I'll just watch it.
That certainly is a possibility. Atlanta has a women's film group called Women in Film and Television Atlanta, and I would love to see who we could bring on from that organization to talk.
Absolutely.
As time goes on, and we get ourselves a little bit more known. That'd be great.
Oh, it will be. And I thank you very much. We got something good started here, and I think and that's and we obviously can get good topics, get good conversation. And as we go on, we can get people, live watching us, and then they can bring in their Facebook. We can bring all this stuff as we're learning this StreamYard and everything. And I think it'll be beautiful. I think it's going to be a great show, and I think we're going to get something out of this.
Yes, we certainly will.
Well,
thank you so much for having us, starting this, and working on it with me, and let's kick some ass.
You betcha. You have a great night, everyone, and we'll see us on the other end of the tape. Take care.